Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Leighton City Council meeting for this evening, which is November 18th. The start time is 7:01, and we'd like to open our meeting with a prayer and pledge, and each month we allow one of the council members to conduct it, and tonight, or this month, for November, it's been Councilman Clint Morris. So, Mr. Morris, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, we come before Thee as members of this community, grateful this evening for the liberties that we enjoy, grateful for the rights that Thou hast blessed us with. We're grateful, Father, this evening that we're able to discuss the business of Layton City, grateful for those who serve in the city, grateful for those who protect us, our first responders, and those that serve our basic needs here. We're grateful for this opportunity to discuss this agenda. We ask that Thou would please bless us with wisdom, that we will be able to have as we normally do, a civil discourse and come to good and wise decisions. And these things, Father, we pray for and do in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you, Councilman Morris. Okay, Council, we do have some minutes that we need to approve, so hopefully you've all had a chance to look at them and see if there's any corrections or not. If so, please let us know now. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to adopt the minutes that are listed on our agenda.
Okay, I guess this is my job. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the Layton City Council work meeting of July 15th, 2021, the minutes of the Layton City Council meeting of October 7th, 2021, and minutes of the Layton City Council strategic planning work meeting of October 21st, 2021 as written.
Okay. It's been moved in second that we adopt the minutes as Councilmember Fitzpatrick presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. I failed to acknowledge the fact that Councilman Day is not present with us here tonight, but he was going to try to call in. I'm not sure if that has happened or not, but it has not. Okay, I know he was kind of in a remote area and was going to do his best, so we want to excuse him then. Okay, we'll move on to the second item on our agenda, which is our municipal events. So, Mr. Thomas, do you have any?
Tons.
I figured you would.
Everybody get on your dancing shoes. We have our holiday lighting, which will be lit on Monday. That's this coming Monday. The lights will go on about 7. We have a program that will start at 6 over at the high school in the auditorium. And then as soon as that's over, which it'll be over just before 7, they'll walk across the street and then light the lights. And if you meet right here at this junction where
between the fire department and the Davis
between
Arts
the fire
Council?
department and the park there, that's right where they'll congregate and then light them up. And then after that, anywhere you go, you'll enjoy the light. Other than that, lights on Monday, concert at 6. Then we've got on the 7th, for those of you that want to go back a few years, we have the Hayrides. And that takes place over here to the edge of the pool by Starkey and Wendell Snow, the playground there. They'll come into there and you can get on and they'll take you through the lights and come back and drop you off. So that's on the 7th. And they start 6 o'clock. And they go till about 8, till everybody has gone. But it's usually pretty crowded. So be prepared to wait a minute, wear gloves, dress a little warm, bring a blanket. So that should do it, Mayor.
Okay, that's quite a bit. Sure, go ahead.
Is somebody going to do the Polar Express thing for the Davis Arts Council?
Yeah, that's just what we were discussing here. But
Well, I don't know much about it other than I was at the museum board meeting today, and they're going to do Leighton trains. So it'll kind of follow the Polar Express thing. They'll be open on the 30th, 1st, and 2nd of December. They're going to keep the museum open till 8 o'clock at night, and they're going to have some train exhibits that go along with the Polar Express theme.
okay, so
Interesting.
I'm familiar with Polar Express. Are you? Because you're welcome to
No,
speak.
no, I'm just the Interfaith concert. I was just.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to? Okay. So what Councilman Morris wanted to make sure that you're aware of also is this Sunday night is the Interfaith concert over at Leighton High School as well. And I believe that starts at 7 p.m. And again, that's one of those concerts where once they're finished, then there'll be a candlelight vigil that will come across the street. And they actually light up the nativity scene that's over by the seminary building. So you've got 2 nights full of lighting events for the city. In regards to the Polar Express, what that is that's the Davis Arts Council. They do what they call their Active Pages program. And if any of you attended the program they had at Halloween where they did the storytelling down through the park, well, this is very similar, but now it's going to take place in the lighted park. So amongst all the Christmas lights, they will tell the story of the Polar Express, and this is done by professional actors, and it's very entertaining and good. And at the end of it, you will be receiving, I guess, a commemorative Polar Express book as well. But in order to participate, this is a free event, but the Davis Arts Council needs you to go onto their webpage and pre-book your timing so that they can make sure that they coordinate the groups accordingly. So those dates, it's going to run for 3 nights, which begins November 30th, and then the 1st and 2nd. So it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And at that time, also the Layton City Rotary Club will be selling hot chocolate in the park. And in fact, they'll be opening up, I think, Monday night as well. So there's a lot happening. We're going into the holidays, but mentioning the holidays, Councilman Blockson's going to tell you about another program they have.
Yeah, Davis Arts Council has their Deck the Halls this year, which is taking place at Leighton High School's auditorium. They have a Caleb Chapman's Crescent Super Band. It's a local band, and tickets they begin at just $10. So it should be a pretty exciting show. I know that Davis Arts Council is very happy with getting this show and hope to see you out there.
Very good. Okay, I think that pretty well concludes our municipal announcements for now. We will go ahead and move on then to our verbal petitions, our verbal presentations as well. And we're very honored tonight to have 2 different organizations that help out the city in many different ways. And so we'll first witness the swearing in of our youth council. So all the youth that are involved in that, I'm not sure is Karen. Let's see, Kim is going to take care of the swearing in, but would one of the counselors come up and maybe announce the names of your students that are here so that we can make sure that they are acknowledged? You're welcome to go to the mic over here. I know one of the members is Erin Harding, who is not here, and while they're getting their thoughts together there, I thought I'd mention that it's kind of cool. She's actually participating in a national Irish dancing competition. So she's representing the Layton City here in a national competition. So I think we would like to wish her all the best of luck this week. So do you want to just have your students come up and then we'll swear? What we'd like to do is have them come here and Kim will come down and swear them in. And then Youth Council, we'd like to shake your hand or elbow bump, however you're comfortable with, but individually, I think the council and I would like to congratulate you. So
I do want to swear in the advisors as well as the youth. That was something that was done last time. We did
Yes.
not want to continue.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, so I am Charlotte Esplin, and I am a youth advisor along with Karen Smith and Nellie Stratton. And our youth mayor is Everest Stratton. So let's have you, when we see your name, why don't you just come up this way? Our youth mayor pro tem is Kara Baldwin, and she is excused this evening. Our youth city recorder is Danielia Borgia. Our youth city manager is Bryson Esplin. Youth publicity chair is Jordan Andreessen. And co-chair is Ellie Bischoff. Our youth service director is Will Day. And our youth members are Emery Ingebretson, Aaron Harding, and Rin Houghton. And we are excited to be working alongside with the council and learning and growing as we go.
Okay. Okay, with that, Kim's going to go to the podium and swear you kids in.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the State of Utah, the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of Utah, that I will discharge my duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations.
While they're all working on getting back to their seat, they're actually going to be excused along with their parents in just a minute. But I just want to take the opportunity to thank especially the three advisors who have really helped get this program back on track. About a year ago, we decided that it had kind of lost its way from being part of the council and working with learning about government. And so they've gone back on track with the help of the advisors. The kids have all been on board. They've helped rewrite bylaws. We've started a mentor program as council members will be mentoring with the youth. They're reaching out and learning about the departments. We did kind of a tour of the campus here the other day to give them an idea of what's on site here. But these are our future leaders, and whether they become an elected official or whether they become a public servant in a job, they're learning, and we really appreciate the time and effort they put into it. And parents, thank you for getting them here and supporting them in this activity as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and well stated there. I know that you kids have a nice social planned, so we'll give you a moment here so that you don't have to sit through the entire meeting before you enjoy that. So if you'd like to go ahead, I'll excuse you now if you'd like, is what I'm trying to say. So thank you again for all your dedication here to the city.
You have to stay.
Okay. While they're departing the room, I know that we've got another great group of folks that are willing to step up and service our city. And in fact, it's in a more serious manner. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Chief Kevin Ward, who is going to acknowledge our Community Emergency Response Team, AKA known as CERT. And it looks like Miss Natalie Thoman's also going to join you, so
Yes,
very good.
she will. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Layton City is blessed to have outstanding fire, EMS, and law enforcement services. In the event of a disaster, public safety personnel will undoubtedly be overwhelmed by the response necessary in the community, even through our robust mutual aid. This is where the concept of having trained, certified Community Emergency Response Team members, or CERT, bridges the gap. The CERT program educates volunteers about disaster preparedness for the hazards that may impact their area and trains them in basic disaster response skills, such as fire safety, light search and rescue, team organization, and disaster medical operations. CERT offers a consistent nationwide approach to volunteer training and organization that professional responders can actually rely on during disaster situations, allowing them to focus on more complex tasks. This is accomplished through 9 training modules, the last of which involves a simulated disaster simulation in which trained CERT members now must put their training in action. Layton City CERT program is led by Layton Fire Department Public Education Specialist Natalie Tholen, who's joined me up here. We are blessed to have Natalie lead this program. She's been recognized for the state of Utah for her involvement with CERT and another ancillary program called Fire Corps. Over the years, Layton City, through its volunteer instructors and fire department staff, have trained thousands of our community members in the CERT program. We want to thank our instructors for this class: Floyd Gowans, Michael Tholen, Bruce Talbot, Jesse Seeger, Sandra Moss, and Carol Childers. Tonight, we're going to recognize the latest graduates of our CERT program that are willing to step up and volunteer and serve in their community in the event of a disaster. As I call their names, we'll have the graduates come forward, be recognized by Mayor and Council. And then once you come up, just proceed after recognition and head to the lobby and you'll receive your equipment. So our graduates: Mark Vanderdoes, Cody Wilson, David Merkley, Wynn Harrison, Cheryl Cummings, Dorothy Cummings, Jonathan Mosier, Annette Christensen, Dave Nielsen, Viola Elder, Christopher Elder, Devin Neff, Tara Jensen, Camille Tuller, Adam Harmon, Benjamin Ship, and Scott Ellis. We thank you for your willingness to serve within our community. Thank you.
Okay, again, I just have to say thank you very much for taking the program, for going through that. I know it's a lot of hours, but it's well worth it. And certainly should we ever have a disaster, we know that we've got good folks out there who know what to do and how to communicate and to be able to really take care of one another, because that's what truly makes a community. So anybody listening online, if you have not taken the CERT program, I'm going to highly encourage you to, because it just makes everything goes so much smoother, and it will help you and your family as well as the city. So again, thank you very much. Okay, that concludes excuse me, I am not done. I actually have a proclamation that I would like to read regarding small businesses. Small Business Saturday, in other words, shop local. Whereas the government of Layton City, Utah celebrates local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 31.7 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all the firms with paid employees in the United States that are responsible for 65.1% of the net new jobs created. And this is taken from 2000 to 2019. And whereas small business employees, 41.1% of the employees in the private sector of the United States. 88% of the U.S. Census consumers feel a personal commitment to support a small business in the wake of a pandemic. And 92% of small business owners have pivoted the way they do their business to stay open during a pandemic. And whereas 97% of consumers who shop on Small Business Saturday agree that shopping at small, independently owned businesses support their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economical, and environmental impact. And 85% of consumers who shop on Small Business Saturday, we need you to encourage friends, families to do so. And whereas 56% of the shoppers report they shopped online with a small business on Small Business Saturday in 2020. And more than 50% of the consumers who reported shopping small business endorsed a local business on social media or shopped at a local business because of social media recommendations. And whereas Layton City, Utah supports local businesses to create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our community. And whereas the advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed that Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. So now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Joy Petro, Mayor of Layton City, along with this Layton City Council, do hereby proclaim November 27th, 2021 as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community and the communities across our country to support small business and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move on to our citizens' comment of our meeting, which is item number 4 on our agenda. Again, this is where the citizens are welcome to come up and make comments. If you're representing a group, we like you to, I'm allowing more time, but if not, if it's just an individual comment, please don't go over 3 minutes if possible, because we'd like to make sure everybody gets a chance to voice their opinion. So the time is now yours. Sure. Oh, make sure you state your name and address for the records.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Mata. My address is 1174 Milton Avenue in Salt Lake City. And I'm a volunteer with the Humane Society of the United States. And I am here to ask the council to consider passing a humane pet store ordinance. And what this would do is prohibit pet stores from selling puppies that are sourced from puppy mills. Puppy mills is a high volume dog breeding commercial operation that puts the profits of the business over the welfare of the dogs. Some of these puppy mills will have 3,500, almost 10,000 animals. This is not a hobby breeder. It's strictly for profit. Dogs are kept in small wire cages and are given food and water. And that is it. They do not get to exercise. They never see a vet. And once they no longer breed, they are disposed of, which I will not go into. Approximately 500,000 dogs are kept in puppy mills in the United States. And the majority of the 10,000 suspected puppy mills are in the Midwest. And what happens is pet stores will go to a puppy broker and place an order for a Shih Tzu, a Husky, a Doberman, what have you. The broker then goes to the puppy mills, fills the order, puts all the puppies in a truck, and are shipped out west. So what I am asking for is the council to pass an ordinance where pet stores could only adopt out dogs from shelters and rescue groups. over 400 cities and towns across the country have passed such ordinances, including Kaysville, which just passed an ordinance last month, and 5 states. Utah has failed in last year to pass a state ban. And so we are working with individual cities across the state of Utah to pass an ordinance. And that's all I'd like to say today. So thank you for your time and all your hard work on council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Buenas noches.
Good evening, guys.
Mi nombre es Ana Lilia Pérez.
Her name is Ana Lilia Perez.
Vivo en Cedarwood Park.
Her address is Cedarwood Park here at 189 South Main in Leighton.
Vengo nuevamente aquí
She's coming here once more
a pedir de su ayuda,
to ask for your guys' help,
ya que no he recibido de respuesta
as she has not gotten an answer,
del señor Michael McConkie.
if she has not had gotten an answer from Mr. Michael.
He dejado textos.
She has left them texts.
Cuando hablé con él me propuso que iba a pagar las trailas, mi
When
casa,
she last spoke to him, he proposed that he will pay out the mobile homes
o me iba a remover
or to remove them and place them somewhere else.
a un parque. Hasta ahorita
At this moment,
no
right
le ha
now,
dado solución.
he has not given her a solution to the problem.
Yo he estado accesible
She's been very accessible towards him
para cualquier solución
for
que él
any
me dé,
solution that they might come up with.
pero tengo un mes que no me contesta los textos,
She has over a month that he has not responded to her.
no me contesta las llamadas.
No phone calls, no text.
No sé, ya estoy desesperada, no sé
At
qué
this
voy a
point, she
hacer.
is very
Yo tengo que salirme en
desperate,
marzo,
and she has to figure out what to do because they have to remove them by March.
pero ellos no me quieren dar una solución.
But they won't give a solution to her.
Quisiera de su apoyo para poder
She would like a little bit of your guys' time or help
encontrar
to get contact with Michael
o directamente con el Dr. Winkle,
or directly with Dr. Winkle.
porque ya no creo en él,
Because at this point, she does not believe what they
en
say.
Michael. Ya no creo en Michael McConkie para poder tener una conversación.
She does not believe anything that Michael McConkie has to say at this point because he is not responding to anything.
Gracias.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Do you want me to make a comment or do you want to? I know what I've requested from them. And so, and they have failed me as well. So I know Mr. Jensen here has been dealing with this and probably has more of an update. I have a different update, but go ahead. Well, is there more of you that want to comment on this topic? Okay, then I'll tell you what we're going to do is let's hear all the comments and then we can respond. Okay, but if there's anything different, then certainly I want to hear that as well.
Hi, my name is Sergio Trujillo. I live in the same spot, the Cedarwood Mobile Home.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Michael, but Michael tried to find some place for move my trailer. Mr. McConkie talked to Mr. Winkle. I think he don't want to pay my trailer. He want to move it. But for WY, it's not easy to move it. So we can find anything right now for moving. And that date to take it off is really close. We have only 3 months. And for moving my trailer, and at least I need 1 month for move all my stuff and move the trailer. So I have 2 months only for do all that. So I need the answer, even is give me the money or move it. But we need people to start working very hard for that. And I think if you can help for something to contact him and move more faster, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. My name is Louise Brown. I live at 343 South, 750 East here in Layton. And I've left a paper for you to look at, but I wanted you to understand that in case you're wondering why Cedarwood folks keep coming back here, it's because city leaders set a precedence a long time ago that there would be help for them from Layton City. You can see in that letter that I gave you, way back in May, I had a good conversation with Lon Crowell, who is your Economic Development Deputy Director. And in that conversation, we went back and forth talking about how to help the folks. But in one of his emails to me, he said, it is the responsibility of the property owner to properly assist his residents if he should decide to move forward developing his property. I have that in an email from him. So back in May, we were believing that there would be, some guidance and some encouragement from the city to Mr. Winkle to help these folks, right? That was in May. In June, Mayor Petro came, appreciated you doing it. And at Nicole Malin's Cedarwood home, there were a couple of folks there along with her and myself. And in that, she said, we've told Mr. Winkle from the beginning that it is his responsibility to relocate his people. And when I asked her, does that mean eviction? She said, no, I don't think that's what the council had in mind at all. And we appreciate that. We agree with you completely. From Gary Crane, we appreciated your interview with Telemundo. And you can go look at that yourself. That was aired on July 22nd. And in that television interview, he said the city's part in all that is that we will not grant any approvals until these folks are moved, and then bless you. You said successfully moved to another location. So all of this is setting expectation to these folks that somehow you're going to inspire Mr. Winkle to help them relocate. And now you're hearing their stories. These people have they have 3 months to get out, and there's nothing. The most important, one of the most interesting ones is on the back of that paper in that blue box you can see. This is from your 2019 Redevelopment Agency report. And on page 13 of that report, this report is generated by the city's Community and Economic Development Department. And if you read number 6 in that list, it says that the city is, quote, currently in discussions with the landowner so we can relocate the mobile home park. We are in the beginning stages of negotiation, but it seems very promising. The landowner we are talking to is in Leighton, and he's excited to work out a deal with us. And in this report, you would get the impression that Layton City leaders acknowledge their role in the relocation of the residents, and they engage in negotiations with the landowner for that purpose. And the burning question tonight is, so what happened? When were those, quote, very promising negotiations held? Who held them? What was decided? What's the follow-up? And how do those 2019 negotiations help these residents today? And why are we down to 3 months and there's still nothing for them? Empty promises. I've talked with Mr. McConkie on behalf of some of these people. They're right. There are empty promises. There's not anything more than that. I really feel like they're being led along until they have to be out. And then they're gone. And then you don't have to worry about them anymore because they're gone. And that's not good practice. The residents, the reason that they keep showing up, the conclusion that I've drawn is that they believed in these intentional statements of very promising negotiations, that he should properly assist his residents, it is his responsibility to relocate his people, and that they will be successfully moved. And the question to be asked tonight is, do you intend to protect them from the financial devastation that they're facing, some of them in 3 months? I hope I've established in your minds tonight the fact that the reason they're here is there's been some expectation established, and they're looking to you to fulfill it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we want to comment? Because I do know first off, we have stepped in, and we've had the negotiations, and we did get him to come. And I just want to be clear that when this was bubbled up even more and we found out how the communication was not there, we did hold that meeting here in this chamber so that we could air it out and really fully understand and have him here so that he heard it, we heard it. And I recognize that He probably doesn't work on the same time frame as the majority of the rest of us, but we're going to continue to press. We'll continue to press. And I know myself and one other woman that can help these folks with assistance. I've had this discussion here this morning, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I haven't had a chance to discuss this at all with the city council nor the city manager, but I can assure you that because of the fact that what I'm hearing here tonight, it supports what our thought was, that she and I will come around, teach one of the 14 homeowners and actually gather the information ourselves so that we know and understand, so that hopefully we can then solicit the help through the state and be able to make sure that we get these folks taken care of. I know that there is some assistance there, but we have to make sure we have the correct data. And the only way we're going to know that is if we have these people involved with collecting that data from the individuals. So with that, I will ask the question. I'm sure most of you work, and that probably the evening or a weekend would be the best time. Am I correct in that assumption? We will have a Spanish interpreter already because we've heard you guys and I've understand what the problem's been. Yeah. But I want you to know that we are limited as a government or as a governing body here within our city. We are limited, but I am reaching out and we are trying to get other resources for them. I'm not going to commit to any dollar amount or anything like that, but I can tell you that those discussions have been taking place. So it may appear that things are not happening but on their side, but I can tell you on our side, we are being proactive.
Excellent. And thank you for having a translator there, because although Mr. McConkey stood up here and promised one, there wasn't one. There were no translators in the discussions that he had with each family, and it wasn't in their home. Although he said that he would come to their homes, it wasn't in their homes. He had them come to the office there on site. There was no translator. So about 90% of the folks are Spanish-speaking folks. So a lot of them had that interview with no translation services. And they were making life-changing discussions and decisions in that meeting with no translator. Some of them brought their children to translate. Some of those children were rather traumatized by that experience. So thank you for having a translator. It's critical.
Okay. Well, thank you. Hopefully you'll understand that we are. Mr. Jensen, did you want to add anything to that?
I'd be delighted.
I apologize that I didn't have this discussion with you earlier, but.
Yeah, I think that might be a subject for discussion in a different setting, but as to the wisdom of that. But I guess my general comment would be the lack of knowledge about what's happening or not happening doesn't make it true. There have been ongoing discussions with, as recent as yesterday, with the owner and potential developer of the property, and the issues that Mrs. Brown is raising are among the very issues that have been discussed. In the past, I have extended personal invitations to Mrs. Brown and others who are trying to advocate very well that if there are questions to reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to give them an update on the status of the park's efforts, status of the owner's efforts, status of the developer's efforts, and the status of our efforts. I'm still happy to do that. And that's a better venue to have these kind of discussions, and that's just a suggestion and advice to you. But there are ongoing discussions. As recent as yesterday, as I said, the development team, we met with them on a Zoom call. They went through every individual, every homeowner of the 15 in phase one. They identified the requests in great detail that had been made by the residents. And they have indicated a willingness and an urgency of responding back to those. They are aware of the deadlines that they have committed to and that need to be met. I suspect, I can't speak for the developer, but I suspect that the reason there's been some delay is because they've tried to be comprehensive in the review and talk to everybody. And they've tried to attempt to categorize people's situations into like situations to the extent that that's possible, while still recognizing that each one of which they do, each person is individual. There's some people who own their trailers. There's some people who lease their trailers. There's some trailers that can be moved. There's some trailers that cannot be moved, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things I believe they're trying to be careful about is to create whatever word you would like to use, successful, fair, appropriate resolution to people within a given category. They're trying to be very diligent about that. So I guess the shortest answer would be all of the things that I think you mentioned, Louise, are actually underway, and would be happy to report to those whenever you'd like to have that report. But things are happening, and I think each of those homeowners will be contacted very quickly. That was the expressed desire on the part of the development team yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you for that update too. Okay. Does anyone else wish to bring any type of citizen comment before us? Seeing that there's none, we'll go ahead and proceed then with item number 5, which is our consent items. We have 4 items on the consent agenda tonight. So with that, we'll go ahead and take, I guess, these. Let's go ahead and proceed with the first item, item number A. If you want to, you can make the motion now.
I'm asking the mayor, Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like to see the consent item number B pulled and dealt with separately.
It's fine. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, we can do that. Okay, there's been a motion to pull item B and deal with it separately.
I'll second.
It's been seconded. So council on favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. That means item number B will move to the bottom of the agenda item and deal with it separately. So with that, let's go ahead and start with item number A, which is the adoption of a Davis County natural hazardous pre-disaster mitigation plan. Let me turn the time over to Mr. Steve Garside, one of our city attorneys.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, Resolution 2146 addresses the adoption of the pre-disaster mitigation plan for Davis County. This is something that is done every 5 years. One of the main reasons that we adopt this, besides it being a requirement of federal law, but more important than that, is that if a disaster does happen, the adoption of this plan facilitates our residents' ability to access FEMA funds for any losses they may have incurred that were not covered by insurance. The entire document is about 300 pages. We included for the council's benefit just the executive summary. Layton's portion of that plan is about 11 pages. And as it states in it, this is an ongoing, in fact, it's been updated as recently as probably about 3 weeks ago. And so it is continually being updated. Basically, it has an inventory of potential problems and how we anticipate to prevent or at least mitigate any damages to those facilities, as well as anticipating the different natural hazards that we have in Leighton City. Again, this is an ongoing document. We adopted it last in 2016, so you'll see it again in 2026. And we recommend the adoption of this resolution, which adopts that draft form of the pre-disaster mitigation plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Council, did you have any questions on this?
Were there any changes since the last time it was done?
In 2016?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So since the earthquake happened, did that change anything as far as how you're planning, how the planning document works?
No, because we had the earthquakes before, so we didn't. Yeah, nothing. It didn't give us any additional insight other than it just reminded us that they happen here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Garside. Okay, let's move on to item number C, which is an interlocal agreement between Davis County cities and the Davis County. Actually, I have Mr. Terry Colburn, who will be presenting that for us this evening.
Bring before the council resolution 2151, an interlocal cooperative agreement between Davis County cities and Davis County for the UPDES general permit. Approval and adoption of city's updated stormwater management program. Resolution 2151 authorizes the mayor's signature on page 14 of the interlocal cooperation agreement for Layton City to participate jointly with Davis County to satisfy the requirements of the stormwater management program and adhere to EPA stormwater phase 2 rule. We do this every 5 years, and then this is the year it's due again. So staff would recommend the council adopt Resolution 2151.
Council, do you have any questions regarding the stormwater management plan? Okay, thank you very much. Jerry.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll now move on to item number D, which Mr. Dave Price, our Parks and Rec Department, our director, will be presenting an easement agreement between Layton City and the Utah Department of Transportation.
Thank you. This evening, I have the pleasure of introducing Resolution 2150, which, if approved, will provide for an easement agreement between Layton City and the Utah Department of Transportation at the future park site located at 1750 Weaver Lane. In July of 2010, the Case Creek Estates Homeowners Association dedicated 16.5 acres of property located at 1705 Weaver Lane to Layton City, with deed restrictions that the property was to be maintained as open space or as a city park. The Utah Department of Transportation desires to obtain a perpetual easement to use this part of the property for a trail to be located along the West Davis Corridor as part of the West Davis Corridor project. The proposed trail will be part of a new 10-mile section of trail that will connect the existing Immigration Trail to Legacy Parkway Trail from West Point to North Salt Lake City. The city is willing to grant the perpetual easement to UDOT for the purpose of constructing, reconstructing, and maintaining the trail. Staff recommends the council adopt Resolution 2150, adopting and approving a perpetual easement agreement with the Utah Department of Transportation regarding property located at 1705 West Weaver Lane, owned by Layton City, and authorize the mayor to sign any necessary documents. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that wraps up the items as far as our consent items that the council can act upon in a single motion. So knowing that, council will look for action regarding the 3 items presented.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the pre-disaster mitigation plan update resolution 2146, the interlocal cooperative agreement for the updated stormwater management program resolution 2151, and the easement agreement between Layton City and the Utah Department of Transportation resolution 2150.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the consent items as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we'll go on to item B of the consent items that we wanted to act upon separately. So with that, I'll have Mr. Gary Crane, our city attorney, present the acquisition or authorizing acquisition of real estate.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Resolution 2134 is a resolution that allows staff to move forward with the acquisition of certain property on the corner of Flint Street and Gentile. And if you can think about where that might be, it is on the southwest corner of Flint and Gentile, just on the Barlow property. The Barlows are here tonight. Before the city can go forward or move forward with an acquisition, we have to jump through certain hoops or punch certain buttons. One of them being that a letter needs to be sent to the property owner, identifying certain rights they have, identifying the ombudsman, the fact that they have the opportunity of presenting their case to the ombudsman and mediating the case through the ombudsman. Also, it indicates that no decision can be made by staff relative to the value of the property, which we will have to do an appraisal on, nor are we able to give final acceptance or approval to the acquisition of the property without your permission and without you okaying and approving that. This resolution tonight allows us to move forward with negotiations. Negotiations for the acquisition or for the condemnation or use of eminent domain in acquiring the property. In my time here at Layton City, I think we've used eminent domain maybe once or twice, but never through a complete court action or a court case. We've always managed to negotiate a reasonable price and reasonable value for the property. These things are hard because acquisitions are always hard. 9 years ago, Steve Garside and I walked along Gentile Street. And at that time, we thought that the improvements that were being made there would at least last a few years. We had to do some widening. We approached many of the properties going from Main Street all the way down to almost the Syracuse border. And we had to acquire property to widen Gentile Street and to put improvements on Gentile Street. You might remember that. It was quite a while ago. This parcel of property, we thought we could leave. We talked to the property owner at that time, and at that time it was acceptable to push it as far as we could possibly push it before the acquisition of this parcel was actually needed for a right-hand turn lane. Now, if you sit at the corner on any given day, you'll find that corner backs up all the way from Flint Street, all the way back down the street, almost to King Street. So it's quite a ways. So the time has come and has been put off for quite a while to seek the acquisition of that property. Engineering has put a lot of thought into it, a lot of effort into it, and has reduced the amount of property to be taken in a number of different ways. The plan, if Steve had been able to show it to you before, shows that we have pressed on Rocky Mountain Power, for example, to put in a metal pole, which would be entirely within the right-of-way, rather than having a wooden pole with a guy wire going back into the property, which should take another 20 feet back into the property. They've shortened the actual turn lane so that it will work, it will function engineering-wise, but it will not encumber as much of the property as possible. And so there have been a number of steps taken to try and mitigate the negative impacts, but in reality, the traffic doesn't diminish and is only going to get worse and is going to compound itself as West Davis Corridor. You would think that would take a lot of the traffic off. There will still be east-west traffic traveling down that road. And we look to our professionals to make the decisions as to whether or not these improvements are needed. And it would be nice if we could say, no, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings over this. We don't want to go after any parcel of property. All we can say is we don't want to do that unnecessarily. But there comes a time when we're pushed to do that for safety reasons, for the economy of individuals who travel that street, and for the remainder of the city. There has to be something done on that corner. And so we've started negotiations with the property owner, and we have. I'm glad actually that it was dropped out of the consent items to be its own item, simply because one of the requirements is that the property owner be able to talk to the council about it. And that's one of the steps that you must go through before you actually approve our ability to go out and negotiate for the acquisition of the parcel. And so with that, I invite you to listen to what the property owner has to say. There are two aspects to taking a parcel property. First of all, it has to be necessary for public good. And it is a very important public good in this particular situation. And secondly, it has to be receive fair market value for the acquisition of that property. And usually the dispute or the concern is that fair market value be properly appraised and properly given. Whether or not this is a public improvement is pretty easy. It's a street. It's an essential corner. It's an essential turn lane. Our engineers have made that determination a long time ago, and we're just actually catching up with that decision with this acquisition. And so with that, staff would recommend your approval of 2134. And I want to make it clear that before we ever file an action in condemnation, this does not authorize us to file that action without your consent or approval. We've got to have your consent or approval before we can actually acquire the property for a price. Even if the price is the appraised value, we will come back to you and get that approval from you to pay that price. And so this is essentially a step in the process that allows us to move forward with the negotiation. But there will be more to it if we end up in having to take either of those steps, and we hope never to have to take the second step. So Thank you. Any questions that I can answer for you up front? No? Okay.
I think we'd be interested in hearing from the property owner.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and I promise no one's going to hurt my feelings. This isn't about feelings. This is about what's best for the neighborhood. There are 136 driveways that enter onto Gentile Street from Main Street to Bluff. And you can't treat Gentile Street the same way that you do Antelope. It just isn't the same. It doesn't constitute the same amount of, it's a neighborhood. And my feeling is that if the center, that medium was taken out between Gentile Street and it was a three-way stop, it would alleviate a lot of this problem. Now, I've said to you fellows several times, let's kick this down the road until we know what the impact is from the West Davis corridor. And to me, that just seems logical. I realize that the engineers are experts in their fields, but I've lived there for 34 years. I'm an expert in that corner. There are 80 kids that walk along those streets. And I think if the speed limit is reduced and traffic is, I call it pushed onto Leighton Parkway, that's a better road for people to go quickly down. And the increase, if the speed limit was increased there, it would really alleviate a lot of the problem that we're seeing on Gentile Street. I don't see, as we have watched traffic, it's about 3 out of every 10 cars are turning. I did our own traffic study, hired a group to do that. And I thought I shot myself in the foot because guess what weekend it was? It was Mother's Day weekend. And we all know that everybody's going to J&J for flowers for their mothers. And so I thought, well, that was dumb. We should have done it a different day. But as those intersections are graded, A, B, C, and D, on the busiest weekend, it was a C. Now that should tell us something. There are other things we can do to take care of that. And I just feel like I know that because I participated in that, giving the property to the center of the road for the widening improvements of Gentile Street. And Duncan said then, well, if they don't need it, we're not getting it back. And I guarantee that if we don't need that right-hand lane, no one's going to be giving that property back to me. Right now, it's difficult enough to get in and out of that driveway. There are cones that they've put out to show where it is the sidewalk begins. And there is no way I can get in and out of that driveway without doing a 5-point turn. I would appreciate it if this could be pushed down the road till we know what the West Davis corridor will do for us and see if that will make a big difference in the traffic. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Mansett. I'm legal counsel for Ms. Barlow. My address is in Salt Lake City. I do a great deal of eminent domain work. I'm not sure exactly what this resolution, what you're being asked to vote on tonight, but one of the requirements before you can authorize the exercise of eminent domain is a notice be given for a public meeting to the landowner. That has not been done. So if the resolution is asking for authority to exercise the power of eminent domain, that would be an unlawful act, and that would be challenged in court. And I invite you to look at Utah Code Annotated 78B-6-304. Also, I think the impact to this property will be substantial. As Mrs. Barlow mentioned, cones have been placed there. I understand some of you have gone by, at least some of you have gone by to see where this new right-of-way line will be. The impacts to this property are going to be very significant, and that will be challenged. And we believe in court. At least what's been proposed is that the value of just the property that would underlie the new right-of-way be paid for, and there's nothing, no compensation for what's called severance damages. In eminent domain, a landowner is entitled to two methods of compensation: the value of the property that's actually taken, and any resulting damages to the remaining property, which is called severance damages, a decrease in value as a result of, as Ms. Barlow said, the difficulty of getting in and out of the property in the after condition, the impacts of the road being that much closer to the property. This is one of the oldest homes in Leighton, and it'd be a horrible travesty to impact this house even further. We would ask that any effort to acquire this property by eminent domain be put off until the West Davis corridor is completed. Right now, you have a lot more traffic. You have the truck traffic that's otherwise not permitted on Gentile. That goes up and down there, permitted during the construction of West Davis corridor. This may be necessary, and we may be back here, after the completion of West Davis corridor. But we would ask that this be put off until then, and then we can address the situation and see what the necessity of that may be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's one more, I guess. Well, this isn't really a public comment, right? So unfortunately,
it's not a public hearing.
Right.
And so
being that it's, actually, if you're a family member, you're welcome to, but I don't. That's true. You guys are related to everybody.
When is the meeting for public comment on this exchange?
Well, we don't know yet because it depends on the action and how we proceed. So there might not be a public, well, technically, I guess Gary can correct me, but I don't think there will be, right?
if we advance with an action in eminent domain, there would be a public hearing and individuals would be able to speak. Specifically, Mrs. Barlow, we're concerned about what she has to say, but yes, there would be additional opportunity to speak at that time.
Well, who can I talk to in private then about possible impact to my property, which is on the opposite corner of Flint and Gentile? If I understand, power lines will be adjusted, which may cross the corner of my property. I have questions about that. I have questions about the safety of westbound traffic trying to turn left on Flint Street. If there's also cars coming, turning right on that turn lane without a merge, and I understand there's no merge lane proposed or planned there.
So could I recommend that you contact the city engineer and we can arrange an appointment for you to meet with him? That would probably be the best way to go, rather than for you to go ahead and state everything right now and have us try and make notes and try and answer your questions, which we're not going to be able to do right now.
If you're voting on this tonight, then my comments will be.
No, this actually allows. We're not voting on whether or not to take the property by eminent domain. we're voting to allow us to acquire that turn lane on the right-hand side. That's all we're going to be doing. And so if you want to speak to the engineer, we can get you a number to speak to the engineer. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Regarding the attorney was right. We will be back here again. Right now, the engineer has opined that the capacity is such that we need that turn lane right now today. He has also opined, because of a study, that even if West Davis Quarter comes in, that we will still be in a position of badly needing that right-hand turn lane. So that study has already been done, because the last thing we wanted to do, quite frankly, is to acquire any property from anybody down Gentile. And so he's advanced, he's done that study. We can bring that information back to you. If you require us to bring that information prior to an acquisition, we can certainly do that. We didn't have an opportunity to talk about all the details of the area that we're using as a turn lane, and we could certainly do that, at some time in the future. But your expert has opined that that is needed in order to get people to drain Gentile, which is getting worse all the time, and to be able to take people to the south. And it is not going to be any different. The damages may be more in the future, because at the rate property costs are going up, the damages are certainly going to be greater, even if we were just pay for the underlying land. And severance damages and the damages that the attorney's talking about, the actual cost of the road, are all determined by appraisal. And that's what we fight about. That's what lawyers fight about. That's what we get paid to fight about is value, right? And so that would be the issue, would be value. And the way we sort that out is through getting qualified appraisers who are trained in takings appraisals to appraise the property and give us a value on it. And they would take into consideration all of the things that Mr. Mansfield talked about. And we've done it hundreds of times in the city, and we'll do it again probably hundreds of times into the future. Maybe I won't, but there will be others that will take my place that will. But it will always be a need, because we're growing. Leighton City is not standing still. The most recent census, somebody said tonight, was 82,000? Mm-hmm. And in another 5 to 10 years, if we go as far down the road as we were 9 years ago, we're going to be up around 100,000. And so if we wait and see how West Davis Quarter goes, and this is already full, we're going to be back here again doing exactly the same thing. So what we're asking, what staff is asking, is let us proceed forward with the acquisition of this property to see if we can come to an agreement with the Barlows. That's our first thrust, is to negotiate, come to an agreement, and that's certainly what we want to do. She's well represented. Mr. Mansfield's qualified. We've been on opposite side of the tables before, and so we're just asking for the opportunity to be able to negotiate with them, to be able to come to a value, to get an appraisal and come to a value on it.
Okay, council, is there any question or discussion here?
So this isn't a public hearing, but are we allowed to make comments?
Sure.
Okay, so when I went to college, I took a lot of theory, and I always look at the traffic studies as theory. And when you get out and you hit the road, and on this one, literally hit the road, sometimes theories go out the window. I've lived in West Layton now for 8 years, and I travel this road many, many, many times a week. I went out earlier this week, and I stood on that corner during a train, the children going to school, people going to work. And the problem I see is the train. Traffic moved fine until the train, or until the crossing guard entered the intersection across from the school. It slowed traffic down. I ran an errand and I came back and got stuck by another train going westbound that blocked traffic all the way up to the bridge on Gentile up this direction. I don't know that this turn lane is going to solve the issues on Gentile. I travel at westbound, and I have been stopped at Angel Street, and it is backed up all the way to 2200 West, going westbound. So an eastbound turn lane isn't going to do anything for that. I don't know, and I would like to see if, as Mrs. Barlow mentioned, removing the island is what the impact would be, and if that's even been studied. I know that a lot of the issues that people run into is when they turn westbound off of Flint Street, left onto Gentile, where they have to merge, especially if the train has stopped traffic and now people are going. It's very difficult to go westbound, turning left off of Flint, not eastbound going to Flint. Ever since I've lived out here, all I've heard is all this traffic on Gentile, because it's getting worse. It's getting worse on 2200. It's getting worse on 200 North in Kaysville, which I avoid completely. The parkway's starting to back up now in certain locations. Traffic is picking up. And we keep saying it's people from Syracuse coming up into our city. I agree with Mrs. Barlow. Let's wait. Let's see we're so close, not necessarily the West Davis corridor, but we are so close to opening 2700 West that will go right to the parkway. That's a straight drop to Layton Parkway and the freeway. I don't understand why people go on Flint Street except to reach the parkway. And why would you go 30, 35 miles an hour up Gentile, knowing the train's going to happen? My habits are changing, and I am using the parkway a whole lot more because of train issues on both Hillfield and Gentile. I personally think that this is not, as you worded, Gary, is not necessary for the public good at this point.
Okay. Council, do you have any other comments here?
I have one, and echo Councilmember Fitzpatrick mentioned about residents will call me or email me about traffic, and my go-to answer has been the go-to answer that I've been given since I've been sitting here, is that when the West Davis corridor is complete, that traffic on Gentile will be reduced by 40%. So I guess I'm confused as whether this study that you're talking about with the engineer with the right-hand turn is part of that, or if it's, I'm confused that I'm not getting the correct information, or maybe it's new information, and that's fine too, but that's been my go-to answer. And like Councilmember Fitzpatrick mentioned, people from Syracuse and West Point trying to get to the freeway, the best way is on Gentile, and that will be going away. So and Mrs. Barlow is correct in that you don't get a chance to, well, let's try it. If it doesn't work, well, it doesn't go back. So that's where I am tonight.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, may I just confirm, I think it's been stated, but just to emphasize, the decision the staff's asking you to make tonight is not binding in any way. It's an authorization to continue to have discussions with Mrs. Barlow. It's an opportunity to continue to discuss the design, if the council would like to do that, and to dive in depth into the proposed design. It doesn't dictate anything with regard to cost, price, timing, design, etc. It simply is a requirement of state law to allow us to continue to negotiate in good faith. We've had multiple discussions with Mrs. Barlow, and she's been very gracious, as has Mr. Mansfield. We've appreciated that opportunity to do that. I believe that we're making progress in that effort. I think the city has a well-distinguished history. Now, I'm obviously biased. We don't, with all the needs in the city, we do not have any kind of a history of asking for things that are not needed. This project, the need for this project started 15 years ago. That's how long this right-hand turn lane has been discussed, and multiple professional engineers have indicated that this is a piece of the overall solution to the problem on Gentile. There has to be lights put in, et cetera, et cetera. All of this is largely focused on avoiding the need at some point in the time to widen Gentile. To widen Gentile would be significant in its impact in terms of effect on abutting properties because of the nature of it, the historic nature of it, because of the closeness of some of the houses, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a piece of a long-term strategy. But like I say, I think we're getting just a bit respectfully ahead of the court because we're talking about design issues that will all get worked out through discussion and the pricing. We're simply asking now to be able to continue to have the discussions with the council's blessing and authorization to do so. It doesn't bind the council to any position, and it doesn't bind the homeowners to any position. All of those issues will be brought back, as Gary said, to you. You'll have a chance to review all of those and determine whether what the city staff is proposing professionally is accurate or not, and what's being proposed in terms of a settlement with Mrs. Barlow is accurate or not.
Okay. I'm actually going to step in here and because Councilman Day was not able to be here, he did send me an email and asked specifically that it gets read tonight. I would delay, but he did ask that it be read tonight regarding the Barlow issue on Flint and Gentile. So his statement is, I travel this route most every day and most days more than a few times a day. I pass it all times of the day and have a good idea of how it functions. I am opposed to the acquisition of the right-of-way for the turn lane because I don't see a need for it. I don't see the justification for it based on the right turn problem. The real backup occurs only when there is a train blocking the road. There are some backups because of the school, but they are more temporarily than the train. I don't think there are sufficient backups for the right turn. All of this aside, I think the problem can be solved with what there is, with what's there. There are 3 lanes in each direction there now. All that is needed at the 3 lanes is to have 3 lanes in each direction. If the concrete medium were removed and the lanes redone, is what he said, it would provide the needed lanes in each direction, including the south turn lane. The traffic poles are already in place. The lights can be made to stop the traffic in all directions like a normal intersection. Stopping the westbound traffic will, in my opinion, not only significantly back up and will resolve, excuse me, let me reread that. Stopping the westbound traffic will, in my opinion, not cause significant backups and will solve the problem of merging traffic into an ongoing traffic. The merging traffic into the westbound lane is a bigger problem than any problem caused by the right turn going south. Layton City has a history of not using eminent domain except in cases that are absolutely necessary. In this situation, the use of eminent domain would cause an unnecessary adverse impact on the Barlow's residential property. We should only do it if it is absolutely needed to solve the problem with as little effect on private property as necessary. We can do this, as stated above, without taking additional property. So, in essence, I think what Tom's trying to say is if we eliminate that medium lane, use that space to create the 3 lanes wide, that you'll be able to solve the problem because you'll have traffic actually stopped and not have to dodge the bullet of trying to merge. And I know myself, obviously I live here, right just down the street from the Barlows. And pretty much the observation that everybody's come to, I think the train is the biggest issue. We won't be able to solve that unless we end up going to an overpass. And that's the last thing I think any of us in this area would like to see because, as Mr. Jensen stated, this is our historical district. It's one of the few areas that has the original homes from the settlers. And I think we all want to protect that, including myself. So
Can I make a suggestion then? I see the way things are going. They're not, you don't have to be blind to see the way things are going. But My recommendation would be this. You've not heard the engineer's information yet.
We haven't.
And really you need to, because none of us are engineers, including me. I'm glad I'm not, because I hate numbers. But the engineer's recommendations are more than just theory. This engineer doesn't make recommendations based just on theory, just so you know. He has done the studies. He knows what's going on. You at least need to have that information before you can actually make a decision of whether or not to take property. Let me recommend this, that we want to continue to negotiate with the Barlows. We don't want to be cut off from, if it is necessary, it's necessary to do now. Negotiation does not hurt. The thing you're uncomfortable with is the eminent domain piece. Let's take the eminent domain out of the resolution and allow the city staff to proceed forward with negotiation on the property. It doesn't take eminent domain off the table, period, because cities always have eminent domain, but you would have control over when you bring that into the mix, if you ever did, which I don't know that you'll ever have to. So my recommendation would be that you allow us to continue, because we are making progress on negotiations with the Barlows. It's not going to be any easier another 10 years from now, 5 years from now. And so if this is the right decision to make, let us continue to negotiate. Take eminent domain out of the resolution, and at least let us negotiate for the purchase of the property. If we can't do it, we can't do it. But if we can, then it would be good. Let us also bring back to you information regarding, that we have all heard, regarding the status of that intersection. Because, like I say, none of us are engineers. I said the same thing. When we first started negotiating, I said, can't we just take that whole cement stuff out of the center there and just, put an extra lane? I said the same thing to Steve, and I know he thought I'm an idiot because here's an attorney trying to redesign an intersection. But he came back with the right answers, with exactly what I needed to hear. I went through about 4 different scenarios that my brain could understand. But he has the answers, and you need to hear those answers before you say, no, it's impossible to do, don't do it. And then at the same time, allow us to continue to negotiate this without eminent domain hanging over their heads immediately with the resolution of this sort. And if you let us do that, we can move forward with this. And at the same time, before we actually make an acquisition, we have to come back to you anyway to present to you exactly what we've negotiated. But that would allow us to appraise the property, to let you know what the value of that property is. Who knows if what Mr. Mansfield says is true, and an appraiser comes back and says, good heavens, you have to buy the whole house. You may decide you don't want to do that. Okay. But at least it allows us to get a handle on value so that we can take a look at it now and make an educated decision on not only value, but also have the engineer come back to you with what is necessary, as far as the information that I've heard that you haven't yet. So that would be my recommendation. You don't have to go with it, but I really would encourage you to let us continue to roll forward, at least with negotiation on this.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Help me understand, Gary, then you're already in negotiation. So you've already been negotiating with the Barlows. So what's different with what you just said versus if we don't do anything, you're still in negotiations? Is that?
Oh, no.
Because we've already been negotiating.
Say what you said tonight, which is this is not a public purpose. That's the end of my negotiation with the Barlows. I won't go any farther because you've essentially killed the deal. And what I'm telling you is that you haven't heard what the engineer has to say yet about whether or not there really is a public purpose to this. If you want to hear that and you want us to continue to negotiate with the Barlows, you've got to make a decision to allow us to do that. Because if you don't tonight, we're going to stop. And we're not going to talk to them again until you tell us we can talk to them again. And that just doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is to allow us to continue to negotiate. And but if you shut it down and say, we've decided that there is no public purpose in this, then you've become the engineer. You've made that decision, and we stop. I won't go out and negotiate anymore.
So, can I make a comment?
Yeah, Councilman.
So, can we meet middle ground and table it for 2 weeks till December 2nd? I mean, it's going to be the holidays. I doubt you're going to meet with them much. To get an appraisal might take longer than that anyway. And have the engineer come back on the 2nd of December and present, and then move forward from there.
You can do anything you want because you're the city council. But
Now,
what I'd
that's
like,
not always true.
but
Go ahead.
The answer is yes, you can.
Okay.
So my question still is, you've got a traffic report, traffic study. We are two years from completion of the West Davis corridor, and then we'll have a real study because it'll be real traffic versus a traffic study. Is that, I guess we're just so close to really knowing.
6 months from the connection.
And then the connection, what you talked about, I just think that we're close to real numbers versus, I'm not saying the traffic study is not a real number, but like actual real life traffic.
Yeah, so you can do whatever you want. But what I'm telling you is that if you don't approve our moving forward with this, with negotiating, we'll stop. We'll stop until you guys say you need to go forward with negotiation on this. We're telling you that we would like to proceed forward with negotiation at least, and let the engineer come and tell you. And you may decide after you hear what Steve's got to say, you may say, you know what? We don't agree with Steve. We think that we need to wait the 2 years. But what I'm saying is if you say, no, we don't believe that there's an impact, even if you say we have to wait for 2 years, I don't think I'm going to do anything beyond that because I really don't have a position. So.
Okay. I know that, I know Alex, you want us to comment, and I also I know the Barlows have raised their hand too. So I think since tonight really is our opportunity to hear them, I think that I want to entertain them jumping into the dialogue as well. So do you want to go first or wait till?
No, I would just echo what Gary said. We're happy to do whatever direction the council gives us. The traffic information or impact studies that are done are not static, meaning they don't take a snapshot in time. They actually look into the future. And so they take into the professional ones, which are the ones we hire, are individuals that take into consideration what the future projections are, both in our community and adjoining communities, based on their development patterns, what their zoning is, et cetera. They work very hand in hand with Wasatch Front Regional Council on the 2040 or 2050 plans. And so they look at the impact or lack thereof of new development like West Davis Corridor, things that are in people's general transportation plans. And out of that, it is a little bit of a crystal ball, I think. It's a science, and they try to make a best guess as to what the impacts are going to be. So it's not an exact science, but we understand the issues. Like I say, our intention as the staff, for what it's worth, and I hope that Ms. Barlow would concur, is that we've tried to be very cordial. We haven't pressed, we haven't threatened, we haven't cajoled. We've been very open to and talked about a lot of different solutions to address some of the legitimate concerns that she has. And our intention is to continue to do that. I mean, our hope is that we would be able to find a fair solution that both parties could feel good about. I mean, that's always the end goal in this. But again, we're happy to do whatever the council's comfortable with. In our professional opinion, it is needed. Again, we don't have any history of asking for things that aren't needed, and because of there's a large thing. But we'll take whatever direction you do and happily apply it. And if that means to table it, we're happy to do that and continue to have a dialogue and have an opportunity to explain more of the science behind it to you guys. And then again, as always, we'll do whatever you decide, if it's everything or nothing, and we'll move forward in it. But we do think it's needed. We wouldn't be here asking for it.
All right, thank you. Did one of you guys want to stand back up?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak again. I think traffic studies, as was mentioned, they are a little bit of a crystal ball. You are, to some degree, basing it on what your projected increase in population. But there is still a lot of conjecture there, and you can get big disagreements between what one expert says and another expert says. That happens all the time. I think your own practical experience should weigh in on this as to whether this should or should not move forward. And candidly, with all due respect, unless this council is willing to authorize eminent domain, we aren't in a position where we're going to negotiate. I mean, the Barlow family does not want this. They will not voluntarily agree to sell the property to the city for this turn lane. It's going to have to be in an eminent domain context. I mean, that is the only way it moves forward. We just do not want this. And we do not think the council should move forward on this. Let's wait the 2-year period until we know what the actual traffic patterns are, both with 2700 West, which I think someone said will come online in 6 months from now, and then the potential of what may happen with West Davis Corridor and potential with the train. I mean, I think no one wants an overpass. Mm-hmm. Maybe the potential of an underpass with the train. That's something that could work as well, and maybe more willing to have occur. But we would ask that no action be taken on this, that this matter not move forward until completion of West Davis Corridor and 2700 West. We can see what the real impacts are. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Council, is there any more deliberation on this?
Madam Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mansfield states that there is not going to be any negotiation with the city. Well, I went out to Mrs. Barlow's home and she provided me some things the city had been trying to do to try to negotiate this. And my question for Mr. Mansfield was that in good faith?
Was what in good faith?
Was Mrs. Barlow's discussions with the city about potential non-eminent domain outcomes for this, were those done in good faith?
Well, they were done under the threat of eminent domain, that the city staff had threatened that eminent domain would be used absent that. And no, we don't want this to happen. What Ms. Barlow did was done in good faith. But if the city is not going to authorize eminent domain, are we going to continue? Are we going to voluntarily sell the property? No, it will not happen.
Okay. So it sounds like there isn't much negotiation.
Can I say something? I think up until about 3 days ago, we were told it was happening regardless. So that good faith was, if this is happening, let's make the best of the situation.
Madam Mayor,
sure.
With all due respect, that statement is simply not true. And what Mr. Mansfield said is simply not true. The city staff, in all the discussions I've been a party to or aware of, has never threatened it. We have said that the resolution that is approved is dictated by state language, and we have to put that in there to cover all contingencies. But never once have we inferred or suggested. The staff has said, I was asking a meeting with Mrs. Barlow and Mr. Mansfield and a real estate representative they had, if I thought there were any other solutions or if this was a fait accompli. And what I said to him in front of you was that this was not a fait accompli. The city was very open to finding solutions that would work for everybody. I did say, however, that the staff believes this is something that needs to take place. That's a much, much different thing than just sitting here tonight and misrepresenting that statement that the city has threatened eminent domain. That is an absolutely false statement. So I beg to differ, but I think it's important just for the council to understand that, and that's continued to be our position.
Okay, we respect that, and I think at this point, council, basically we have two decisions to make. One, either adopt this resolution and allow the staff to go ahead and proceed to gather information, or two, take an opposite action and perhaps wait until you guys have suggested, until the corridors come through and look at it at that time. It seems to me that if we postpone it 2 years, that you would then be and I'm going to ask this question directly so we know and it's on the record, at that point you would be very negotiable and not threaten and not take us to eminent domain. Is that the feeling I'm hearing from you?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So in other words, if this council decides to postpone the decision as requested by the family and see what the impact is from the West Davis corridor opening up and 2700, and that if our studies still show or our engineers still prove that it is necessary, at that point, you're willing to come to a satisfactory outcome for both parties. It's got to be a win-win on both sides and not go to eminent domain. Is that what I heard?
If the data supports that, I believe, yes, they would be, the family would be willing to consider that. We're not going to take everything at just face value. But yes, we are based on the data, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, well, council, I'll let you guys make this decision here, but I know that we're kind of sitting here with we haven't heard the facts on the city side, in all honesty. We have heard your statement now, which I do appreciate, and we do want to hear. So now that we know we've had that information out here, I think it's now upon us to decide which two actions you want to take.
Madam Mayor, we talked about, Councilmember Fitzpatrick talked about tabling this to the next meeting. So I'd like to see the engineering data. We haven't seen it. I mean, that'd be the fair thing to do. It's been talked about, but I'd love to, and that we owe that to our citizens as well, to see that before we decide to approve this or not. It would have been great to have that tonight, but.
Yeah, and I realize that. I mean, time ran out and we didn't have a chance to see that. So, that's to me a logical conclusion, but at the same time, I have to rely on the council members here to make the decision and to make a proposal here on how you want to proceed.
Madam Mayor, I think it's important for us to make sure that we're not acting as engineers on the spot without hearing what the city staff has to say. I met with Mrs. Barlow. I wanted to hear what she had to say because she's an important part of our city, and that's an important area of our city. And she gave me all the information. I wrote down all my notes on it because she has an important voice. And I haven't made a decision on what I'm going to do yet because I haven't seen the other side of the coin. I have great faith in Steve and the work that the engineering department does, and I think it would be illogical for us to make a decision on this without at least hearing what they have to say. That allows Councilman Day to be here to help him make the decision as well. I would feel much more comfortable if we had a full 6 members of the mayor and the council and all the information in front of us before we make any decisions moving forward. That doesn't necessarily mean that negotiations are probably not going to, like Councilmember Fitzpatrick said, negotiations aren't going to be on the forefront until we meet again anyway. And so I think that gives us a chance to get all the information that we need. And so I appreciate you coming and I appreciate you reaching out. That's exactly how this should be, because the last thing I want to do as a member of the city council is to be a party to taking property that doesn't need to be taken. Because again, you can't remedy that. The money is not really the remedy for a takings is fair compensation, but that's just monetary and it's never going to be able to come back again. And so if there are any other ways for us to be able to accomplish what we want, then we should look at them. And so I want to hear what engineering has to say, and I'm in favor of tabling this and then having a discussion, full disclosure, everything on the table, and then making a decision on whether we think it's in the best interest of the city to move forward.
And I have a question, because I think one of the consistent things about Gentile that we're hearing is the trains. And I know we've got an engineer traffic study. Is there some way to get something from Front Runner and the train, Union Pacific or whatever, that tells the number of times the train passes that track, what the length of those cars are? Because I got to tell you, I sat through, traffic was probably past Angel Street trying to go east on one train because it went on forever. We can have cars on the ground, but if they're being stopped because of a train, And that's why we're having the backup and the holdup. I'd like to know if there's some data on that particular issue as well, based on the concern with the street. And if that could be provided us in a method of tabling, and then, I don't know, 2 weeks or 4 weeks, how long it would take to gather that information. I know we're pushing into the holidays, so that's a concern. But I'm in favor of I still don't think it's needed, because I travel that road all the time and I don't see that many people turning right onto Flint Street. But I am willing to listen, like Councilmember Bloxham said. We've heard from Mrs. Barlow. We probably need to see the studies, but I think in addition to a traffic study, we need to understand the train situation on that street.
Okay, Councilman.
Yeah, I can tell
Thomas?
you the trains are between 98 and 105 cars. I
They're
count
up to
them
400. Excuse me, no, they're
It's just a bad thing.
they're
that
400
I do.
now.
And UTA is only 4.
Yeah.
I'm not. Decisions are made for a lot of reasons. I agree with everything that's been said, but I agree at this point we need to do something. I don't want to say I'm tired of talking, but I'm tired of talking, and I haven't said anything. You know, I think we know what we want to do. So if somebody will put in a motion, we can do it. I think I don't know the term, but we want to see certain things. And I don't know about Terry. I mean, you know, Steve, I didn't see it, sorry. I mean, 2 weeks. I mean, you've been doing this for 10 years, so in 2 weeks, I mean, we can get the information. I don't want to draw this out. I want to get it done one way or another, and the best way that we can. So, and I don't want to tell you to jump through hoops that are going to create problems.
Present the study.
Yeah, I mean,
So council, once again, I'll entertain a motion on action here on how you want to proceed tonight.
So Dave can be done and not have to listen to us
Unless
anymore.
anybody else want to comment? I mean, all of you have made a comment here. So, I mean, if you're ready, let's go ahead and make a motion.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion on this agenda item on the acquisition of interest of real property on the Barlows. The motion I would like to make is that we table this with a date of time certain of December 2nd, requesting the engineer to bring back the requested information.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved in second. I can actually I'll do a roll call vote just for the record. Okay, Councilman Bloxham?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Thomas?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. There you have it. We'll then reconvene on this topic on December 2nd, was it? Okay, thank you. Okay, that actually concludes all the items on our agenda unless anybody has any unfinished business at this time.
I do, and it relates to this same issue, but as I stood with the crossing guard on the one that is there on Flint that crosses from east to west, we're lucky he's still alive. I was there for 15 minutes and I saw 3 crosswalk violations with him in the middle of the street with children present, either turning right onto Flint Street or off of Flint Street onto Gentile. And he says it happens all the time. And I was just appalled that, and I will say 2 of the 3 were on their cell phone as they went through that intersection.
I actually just thought of one more. If you could add this to our studies, just so I'm aware of it, because obviously living in the area, I'm very familiar with what's taken place. And I know that it's probably only been, about 6 or 8 years since we actually changed that intersection anyway, didn't we? Because I know at that time it seemed like there was that bulb out so that we could have the utility box there. So I'm curious exactly when that was and what the purpose of changing that intersection at that time versus what we're discussing now. And that's something you can answer in our question going forward. Does that make sense, Steve? Okay, he got it. I know, Gary, you're questioning, but I know Steve Steve picked up on it. Yeah.
That's why he's in engineer. So.
Okay. And then also, I think just in that study, hopefully we'll be able to get the other citizens' comments so that, we can kind of hear their side or the impact that they might have as well. I think would be good when we reconvene with the information. Okay. With that, Council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Dave, wake
I
up.
third it. I second.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving since we won't see you until December.